This article was sent to me by one of my Twitter followers. Shout out to producer HAC for tagging me in this post that's coming from a blackamericaweb.com, and I thought it was very interesting. So you can see by the picture where I'm going with this, and maybe not. But basically in the state of Illinois, prisons in the entire state have banned books on black history and black empowerment from its inmate program. As you all know, there are libraries in pretty much every prison around the establishment where the inmates pretty much go in there and they read, because that's pretty much all they can do outside of recreational activities and things like that as far as leisure goes. But they banned a lot of black empowerment based books. And that's not even a surprise. That's literally done by design. They only want them reading a certain type of book. I bet you any amount of money they would not ban any type of white power books. I mean, how many Klansmen do you have in jail right now? Those who are part of the Aryan Brotherhood that's in jail right now that are able to get that kind of literature into those prison walls. And also another thing, it literally lines up with how the public school system is. A lot of the textbooks that they banned, they wouldn't even put in public schools. So if they wouldn't put them in public schools where kids are outside and free, what makes you think they're going to put them inside of prisons even when they're not free? Let me go ahead and read this article. In Illinois, 3 out of every 4 inmates are black, yet an Illinois prison banned an inmate education program from using books discussing black history or empowerment due to their quote-unquote racial content. According to the Chicago Tribune, officials at Danville Correctional Center had removed 200 books from a prison library and banned for use in the education program. Removed were several classic books of African American history, including The Souls of Black Folks, the anti-slavery novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, and the memoir of former slave abolitionist Frederick Douglass. According to records obtained in the Tribune received, the dispute between the Illinois Department of Corrections and the Education Justice Project, run under the auspices of the University of Illinois, went back months. The flap between the U of I program and IDOC officials started in November when EJP began the review process for the upcoming semester's books and course materials. That's when a corrections lieutenant told program officials that the program with the materials were that they were racial, according to testimony by EJP Director Rebecca Ginsburg. It's amazing how it's palm colored for the most part, or damn near all parts, that are the ones that determine what is racial and what isn't, but then try to claim that they aren't racist themselves, or then try to use the reverse racism one. They love trying to use that one. But this goes back to them trying to block out our history. And then see, when they try to teach our history, they will always bastardize it, or they'll throw in front of you what they want you to see or what they want you to learn. Like I said, it works just the same way as it does in the public school system. That's why you got to teach your kids at home what they won't teach you in school. Like I said, I actually learned more about my own history from the internet than I did in all my years of schooling, even when I was in college. And I'm just being honest. The EJP library is separate from the prison library, and it follows a separate review process from reading materials sent to inmates through the prison mailroom. But Ginsburg told lawmakers at a July hearing about the dust-up, the review policy has gone through 7 revisions over the past 4 years. In this case, records show EJP submitted 25 books for approval. Of those, 4 were denied outright, 9 were allowed in for review but then denied, and 12 were approved. Among those books not allowed in for review were The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How America Government Segregated America, books denied after review for the spring semester deal largely with race and social issues, including Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, and Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs, both written in the 1800s. During state legislative hearings over the matter in July, IDOC acting director Rob Jeffries said things should have been handled differently. Jeffries, according to the Tribune, said, "While I've only been on this job a couple of weeks, I can assure you this. I am committing to ensuring that rehabilitation programming is available to all men and women in our care. I believe expanding educational and vocational opportunities is a key to breaking the cycle of incarceration for thousands of Illinois families. Like I said, what they wouldn't do for public school kids, as far as our history, I know that they wouldn't do for those prison inmates. And see, the thing is, they don't want them learning history, especially the ones who are probably bound to get out after a few years or however long they are in the school system. I mean, not the school system, the prison system. But this also goes back to slavery times when they didn't want black slaves learning how to read. They did not want you learning how to read. However, if you did read any literature, you had to read from that Bible. And even that had a stipulation on it, because you could only read, or were only allowed to read, certain passages. It was talked about in Birth of a Nation, the 2016 version by Nate Parker. Just in case y'all needed a more updated version of it. But yeah, like, this doesn't, like I said, it doesn't surprise or shock no one. It doesn't surprise or shock me. It shouldn't surprise nor shock you. Now, some people will say, well, they're in prison. They did their crime. Why are they doing this? I said, well, yeah, they did a crime, but if they still want to learn, there's no better place for them to do it right then at that time than right there, because all they have is that time on their hands. It is actually going to force them to learn something that they didn't learn from the outside, that I wish they would have learned on the outside, because if they did, they probably wouldn't have found their way in. And see, this is the thing that literally is a hindrance in our community, is that a lot of us on a collective level don't know our history, because it's been constantly erased or revamped or rewritten or just plain stolen. And that's literally what they're doing right there with these books. Their history is in that text, in that literature, and they're taking it away from them, and they're giving them a whole new one. But I bet you they wouldn't do that with them white inmates. I know they wouldn't.